Hey everyone, I'm Dan Holmes, founder of the Enlisted Kidney Foundation. I'm also a patient. I live every day with membranous nephropathy like so many of you do. If you ever been diagnosed with membranous nephropathy or a rare kidney disease, you know exactly what happens next. You go home, you open Google, you start searching, and before long, you've got more questions than answers. I've been there. That's exactly why August 11th is Membranous Nephropathy Awareness Day. It's a chance for all of us living with rare kidney disease to stop feeling like we're fighting this by ourselves. This year, I'm really excited because the Enlisted Kidney Foundation and NephCure are doing something pretty special. We're bringing together our communities together for one conversation, not a lecture, not a PowerPoint presentation, just real people. Couldn't ask for a better person to have this conversation with than Seferiana Day, who is living with membranous nephropathy, recovered from her transplant, and I heard she's doing really well. So this year, together with NephCure, we're going to be streaming this live on NephCure's social media platforms and EKF's ever-growing TikTok live platform. So whether you're newly diagnosed, living in remission, waiting for a transplant, already transplanted, or you're a caregiver who's trying to understand what your loved one is about to go through, if this conversation is for you, head over to nephcure.org and register through the events page. If you'd rather watch live on social media, we got you covered there too. We'll be live streaming across NephCure's social media channels and live at Enlisted Kidney Foundation on TikTok. I hope you'll join Seferiana, NephCure, and I on August 11th for Membranous Nephropathy Awareness Day. We'll see you there. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Membranous Nephropathy Day in conjunction with EKF and NephCure. Today's going to be a special day. We're going to have a conversation today about and around membranous nephropathy. So as you come in and as you join our conversation, we're going to be reading from our comments. I want you guys engaging in the chat because we're going to be having some exciting conversation today around membranous nephropathy itself. As we get started, I want to just make sure that everybody understands that membranous nephropathy is a rare protein spilling kidney disease, commonly understood in our world as a nephrotic syndrome. And this is something that has right now no known cause and no known cure. So we're going to have a conversation today around membranous nephropathy. I have it. Our guest today has membranous nephropathy as well, and so many other that have registered have membranous nephropathy. So you're not alone. So I want you to sit back, relax, and I want you to enjoy our conversation, and I want you to be part of the conversation. We should be streaming live on several different platforms tonight. We have multiple people in the background working, engineers that are making sure everything is trying to go smoothly. But sometimes on these live platforms, there can be hiccups. There can be freezing and weather delays and all those kind of things. So bear with us as we work through any kind of bumps and hurdles throughout our conversation tonight. EKF is proud to partner with NephCure. We're going to help foster this conversation and introduce patients to an organization whose mission is to ensure that all individuals with rare protein spilling kidney diseases have equitable access to care and treatments that offer the best possible kidney health outcomes. The organization NephCure was instrumental in my disease journey. And here's why. When I was originally diagnosed in April of 2020, I got the diagnosis like so many of you guys do, just out of the blue. you're not expecting to be diagnosed with something that your doctors are going to throw up their hands up in the air, right? You're going to be looking for the medicine, the treatments. What I needed and what I found that I needed was organization. I needed to find other people that had this disease that were just like me, that either had gone through this themselves or were going through this themselves. I didn't know that this was going to be something that was lifelong. I thought this was going to be quick, like the cold. That's not the case. I found organizations like NephCure that specialize in finding cures for rare protein spilling kidney diseases like membranous nephropathy. Today, we are going to have a great conversation. For those that are joining us right now, we are going to have a great conversation with a MN patient. Her name, Seferiana Day. Seferiana joins us as an MN patient who has a little bit of a different story. Her story with membranous is special. So I'm going to allow her to share that with you today. Seferiana, how are you? Welcome.
Hello, great to see you.
Glad to see you. Glad to see you. So, Seferiana, last time you and I came together, we were on the Filter Life podcast. And episode 8 was awesome. It was intriguing. I think we got a lot of really good responses from it. And you were in a unique position in your journey. But before we get into all of your journey, we have a lot of patients with us today that have either been diagnosed with membranous nephropathy or are suffering or trying to learn about rare protein spilling kidney diseases. So Seferiana, if you don't mind, before we get into where you are today, because I'm sure everybody's going to want to hear this, tell me a little bit about how MN became and came into your world.
Sure. Where did I begin? So I was first diagnosed in February of 2016. So a little over 10 years ago. I received my diagnosis. Similarly to you, what you said in your intro, how the doctor is like, this is what you have, and now we're going to pass you off to a nephrologist, because it was my primary care provider that actually made the diagnosis, or basically said, you have kidney disease, now go to a nephrologist, who then did a biopsy and all of that. But I basically started feeling symptoms of swelling in my ankles in October of 2015. And so it took a couple of months to I can't actually remember, like, did I go right away to the doctor? I think I knew like something was wrong because the swelling kept coming back, kind of going away, coming back, early days. And so I, pretty quickly went to the doctor to try and find answers.
So when you get to the doctor and you're like, hey, I feel a little puffy. I know for me, it was high blood pressure, and I was like 300 pounds overnight. So like I usually walk around like 205, and I like woke up like the Pillsbury Doughboy, just full of water, holding all this edema. And we went to urgent care at first, is where we went. And urgent care like pushed on my legs and saw all the squishy, and it didn't really rebound. So they were like, man, something's going on. You probably need to go see to the ER. So very similar, how a lot of people with membranous nephropathy end up learning that they have it, is this trip to the doctor. That's very weird, right? It's swelling or it's high blood pressure. I even talked to somebody that was like, had vision issues, and that's what got them in front of the doctor. So once you get in front of the doctor, how did that go for you? What was that like? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say, well, for one, I would say I didn't get to the Pillsbury Dough girl version. It took me maybe like 3 or 4 months. It was kind of, that did come on, but it took a while. And so when I got to the doctor, she just did a ton of tests. My primary care basically did every single test for like lupus and HIV and all these very scary things. And I had no idea why, but I started hearing and feeling like, this is something weird. Like, this is not easily explainable. So it was a little bit kind of disconcerting to feel that when your doctor's like, I don't know what you have.
Yeah.
But then when I went to the nephrologist, he, we got to the point of doing a biopsy and actually getting a diagnosis that really felt somewhat like an answer, even though I didn't even realize at the time it was a rare disease.
Right.
Nor did I realize it was an autoimmune disease. Like, those are the things that you kind of learn. I kind of had to learn on my own. But that's what it was. I just remember feeling like a lot of uncertainty and not knowing, what this disease was. And in the beginning, not even knowing that there wasn't a cure for it. That wasn't part of the conversation. It was just like, here, this is what you have. And here's the first medication. It wasn't like, they weren't like, oh, just so you know, there's no cure.
Yeah, it would have been nice to know. When I went into the hospital, my situation is a little different. I deal with, I'm a veteran, and I have VA healthcare. So I don't have, the Red Cross, Red Shield people. So I can't, my healthcare situations are a little bit different than most. And those that are joining us that are veterans, look, you're not alone. I mean, this is not only difficult times, but healthcare in general is difficult to navigate, let alone an isolated VA healthcare system. So I didn't even know I could walk into an ER at the VA. That's where I was at the time of diagnosis. I had no clue. We literally pulled over on the side of the road, Googled the local VA, called them and was like, can we come? Am I allowed? And they were like, yes, sir. We're in ER. So it was like over an hour away. We drove all the way over there, and it was just like, that's when the life changes. I mean, for me, it was 2020, right? April of 2020, COVID was running rampant through our country. I got to the hospital. My wife had to stay outside. They wouldn't let her in, because of the COVID restrictions. They thought I had COVID of some sort, because we were still learning like what the causes were. So I had to sit in isolation. All the things were happening. Blood pressure was going through the roof, the normal things that us patients experience when that fight starts, that fight starts, and I think we all know kind of how that feels. And, the journey is in the hospital. The initial journey is very scary. You don't really expect to be there very long. I think I was in the hospital off and on for like a year, and I never thought that this hospital trip was going to be the one that landed me in the hospital for a long time. I wasn't prepared for those kind of things and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around being sick and going to the ER and, eventually being diagnosed with some kind of disease that people don't really understand, and for me, it was really alarming. I had a kidney biopsy. They tested all my blood and they tested everything. And at the time, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So, through my hospital stays, they did a kidney biopsy. I don't know if they probably did that on you as well, right? So you do a kidney biopsy.
Uh-oh. See if he comes back.
There we go. There we go.
We're
back. We're back. Sorry. Sometimes, man, in South Florida, you get these storms that come through, and when the storms come through, I know. Well, in the evening. So I'm on the East Coast. I know you're on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, it's the evening time. We get these evening storms that like to come across Florida and mess us up a little bit. So I apologize if we have a little bit of those service connection issues sometimes, but that's the nature of a live broadcast, So Seferiana, they did a biopsy on you. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with that biopsy? What was that like?
Yeah, so I've had 2 biopsies kind of over the years, because I had the first one, they basically go to diagnose and they check for like the PLA2R, all of those things. I would say the one I most remember is the second one, because you go in, you don't remember anything. To me, it was pretty quick and painless. There was a little soreness afterwards, but the actual procedure, you're laying basically on your stomach, and I had to lay on my stomach all day. And they said, you can't really get up for like 5 hours. So part of the recovery is sort of laying there, and they just monitor you after the biopsy. But I think, I think it was a little bit scary at first going into it. I had actually never been kind of put under, and it was very quick actually. So that was nice. And I didn't remember it. So.
I was a little sore like the day after or two. I was a little sore. I know that somebody was in there playing around with a kidney. You know what I mean? I could tell that somebody was in there messing around a little bit. So I was a little sore. But, when I got my results back, my results came back as secondary membranous nephropathy. So those who don't really know the big world of membranous nephropathy, the two biggest things, there's a primary and secondary type of diagnosis. Primary membranous nephropathy or idiopathic membranous nephropathy is we don't know where that comes from yet. We know that the immune system usually has some kind of an immune spike, and before you know it, you're nephrotic, and we're in treatment mode. So secondary membranous is saying that it's being caused by something else. It's secondary to something. So it was very interesting when I got that diagnosis, because they were like, it's secondary. So they went me through the gauntlet trying to figure out, is it cancer? Is it lupus? What is it? They tested for everything. And ultimately nothing really popped out at them at that point, and that was really where my education had to start. Because when my medical team was kind of like, listen, we don't get it really. I had to quickly become one of the smartest people in the room, right? I was sick. They were giving me pain meds. My wife was on FaceTime on my phone, who was in a parking lot. And there's a lot of medical jargon. There's a lot of terminology that you don't really understand there. All of that, so you try and find ways to navigate through this world. Once you get the diagnosis, you try and find the ways to navigate through this world. And one of the ways that helped me was finding community. I think it wasn't shortly after, Seferiana, I met you. I think you probably remember the day that I was, had my butt out in the back. I was in the thing. I was in the hospital. I was screaming for help. I was death scrolling on, social media trying to find answers. And I found a support group that you happened to be in. And there were so many other people. And I came alive. There was hope right there. I had found that there was a spark at the end of the tunnel that could be lit. It could have been lit. But my medical team was telling me the opposite. My medical team was having me pick out grave sites at Arlington Cemetery. My medical team was telling me, you got 12 months. We don't really deal with a lot of people that are this bad. All the different things. I was unstable for so long. And I think one of the reasons why I was so unstable was because there was a lack of education in the space. There's a lack of education in that space. I didn't know that the albumin and how that affected the disease and, all of the things, how to get the water off and all of those different things. So your initial diagnosis sounds like similar to many people's diagnosis of kidney disease. I know I talk to people all the time with kidney disease, and, we have similar stories. We crash into it and then we get this diagnosis and then we're forced to just deal. So talk to me a little bit about that dealing, Seferiana. How did you learn to cope and deal and take this information and go, I'm not going to roll over and I'm going to fight it and I'm going to win? Where did that change for you? Where did that turn for you?
Yeah, I think similar to you, just finding community really helped in the beginning. I did a lot of research. I think we're like, when our doctors don't know the answer, or they, they might be amazing, they might not be, but there's a limit to like our time with them. There's a limit to maybe what they can share. For me, it was about like learning. For one, I don't think I was ever told this was an autoimmune disease. I had primary. And so to me, I was like looking up journal articles and kind of trying to educate myself. And that's where I learned autoimmune disease. I'm like, well, that sounds totally different than any other or many other kidney diseases. And so I think just kind of arming myself with that education was really important. So that was part of it. I also think building community with NephCure has been huge. You and I have spoken on many panels together with the FDA. We've lobbied Congress like multiple times. We've talked to pharmaceutical companies, like just sharing our stories. And
where does that come from, though, Seferiana? Because I can tell you, look, I'm about to say where it comes from for me. Where does that come from for you? Where does that come from?
Well,
most people don't do that. I can tell most people that are in our chat today, the most people that are on all the social media platforms that are following us, most people don't do this. They don't get sick and then go stand up in front of Congress and scream at them about changing laws to make us feel better. Most people don't do that. Where did you get this fight from? Where did that come from?
I would say, well, I've been an organizer. I mean, for 15 years, I've worked in politics in Seattle and have always been an organizer and advocate for my whole life, like I would say. And so I think this was the first time I was actually able to advocate for myself, if that makes sense. Like I've been paid to organize, around like $15 an hour minimum wage or economic justice. Like I've been paid to work in elected offices. But this doesn't pay. This is me like advocating for myself, which like is so much more meaningful in a way. And so I think that's where it comes from, just sort of this innate desire. But also, I think if I don't do it, like I can't just roll over,
Dude,
and
I know.
And also, I think the fact that I can, like I was 30 when I was diagnosed. I don't have children. Like I can fly across the country if I want to. Like I can make the time. There's no barrier in that way. I had a good job. I was able to like take time off to go and do these things. And so sort of also recognizing like I have the ability, I'm going to go do it. It might be my vacation time, but I'm going to DC and we're going to make a vacation out of it.
Look, I remember finding out about NephCure's patient summit. The very first patient summit that I attended was in Orlando. And I was like, dude, it's an hour away. There's going to be all these people there that have hopefully answers to questions that I had. I had a notepad full of just questions. That's all I had, just unanswered questions. And I remember getting, to the NephCure summit and sitting up front because here I'm sick. I'm tired of this disease. I am beat down from this disease. I am beat down from the industry telling me that there's really nothing that anybody else really can do. Here's the high dose steroid. Just kind of put up with it. We don't really know. So I was like, I got to show up where these people are. There's doctors, there's scientists, there's people trying to find a cure for this. I need to be in front of these people. So I went there, had one of the best times in my entire life. I mean, and then also was so inspirational. I met my doctor who treats me today, Seferiana. Okay. Met my doctor from asking these questions, just raising my hand, sitting in a stand, getting up. They walk over and give you the microphone. What do you want to say? And I was like, look, I got a question. This does not feel good, and I want it to go away. How can we look forward to this thing going away? And that was really my start into the advocacy world, was by asking questions, was trying to find answers of why do I have this? What is it secondary to? That was for me that was part of the journey, because being told that it was secondary it took the wind out of your sails. Primary, I think I probably could have just chalked it up as like, but secondary, like, no, there's something that's causing this. And you're like, what? And for me, it wasn't until I actually was able to kind of break out of the VA healthcare system, get into some really good healthcare outside, and really expand my team is really what happened. I was able to bring in a bunch of different resources and expand my team. We had a pathologist reread my slides. I want you to reread that. I want you to go back through it and just double check. So I get this phone call, right? I get this phone call from my like, I'll call him the civilian nephrologist. He calls me. He's like, Dan, have you ever been a firefighter? And I was like, no, no. Like, I work in insurance. Why? And he was like, well, in your kidney, there's this chemical. that is used in firefighting suppression foam. And I said, what? So all these light bulbs started going off. And then I realized that I was in a significant fire. I was in a rescue on board a nuclear aircraft carrier during my time in the Navy. And during that rescue, I was exposed to this toxic chemical, firefighting foam. And that got into my mouth. And this is when I was finding out, right? This is so many years later. Seferiana, I was exposed in 2008. I was diagnosed in 2020. Like, huge differences. That's why they call kidney disease that silent killer, because it just takes time and it's festering, or it might be festering. We don't know, but I wasn't paying attention. I can tell you that. I wasn't paying attention at all. What was that attention that this disease required? What was that shift for you when you realized, okay, I might be able to see some positive results from some of these trials or whatever you were a part of? Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. I think I never was part of a clinical trial or anything, unfortunately. I wished, I looked for them and definitely wanted to be part of one if there was. So I was just kind of on what felt like kind of like trial and error, if you will, of medications. And so I think for me, what I kind of had to pay attention to the most was just the daily impacts of the disease, like the swelling, it's all the side effects of the kidney disease. And I think like you,
comorbidities, isn't that what they call them?
Yes. So like high blood pressure that you never had before.
Yep. The high cholesterol you never had before. All of the things, the hair falling out you never had before.
Yes, all of those things. And like just how, I gained 30 pounds of water weight. That was like the height was like, I had gained all this water weight and I was like, I can't run anymore. I can't, I can barely walk comfortably. Like, this is not cute. I mean, I was in my 30s and I was like, this is not cute.
Yeah.
Really. I was like, I felt bad about myself. It was like wanting to just be normal again.
Now, when you found treatment,
mm-hmm.
What did that look like for you at first?
I would say it looked like I was on like steroids in the beginning, mm-hmm. Which is really not fun. It was like, they made me angry. I kind of felt, and I worked in a council office at the city and I was like answering phones, like, I was it kind of made me act a little bit differently. And I just felt like on edge. And I had some kind of reactions to the medication that I was on in the beginning. And so I was pretty able to, I told my nephrologist and he was like, all right, let's do something else. And so I ended up getting rituximab like later on, which I think helped. I think it kind of just that targeted, like the focusing on the immune system, I think was what really kind of
that turning point.
This was the turning point.
Yeah.
But it was not, it didn't get me to remission or anything, but I think it was sort of like trying every single thing in the book was kind of my experience, and just seeing what worked, because there wasn't anything that was necessarily like really geared
toward it. Yeah. I mean, I had a similar experience. I felt like we were throwing so many things up against the wall to see what stuck. My insurance didn't like that. The VA didn't like that. These things that we were throwing against the wall, some of them were hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we didn't know if they were going to work or not. I know I was some I don't know, some kind of medication, man, and it wasn't working very well for me. It was causing like really bad side effects. And some of those, what we realize is some of those side effects become permanent, and they don't go away even when you stop taking said medication, and that's just part of this disease, is living with these things, because these medications that I know for me that they were throwing at me they're made for something else. None of it was made for me. None of it was made for membranous. It wasn't made for MN. That was my first question was, hey doc, where's the pill, man? Let me take it and I'll be out of here. I'll be out of your way, give a bed to another patient. I'm okay.
Yeah.
But the conversation really started changing. And I really started understanding as I kept having to go to the ER over and over, pulmonary embolisms, high blood pressure, uncontrollable high blood pressure, all these different things, weight gain, water retention. I couldn't get the water off. I'd go in to the hospital, we'd get it off. A week later, it'd be back, and it's just so hard on the body. It's hard on my body. It was hard on my mental. It was hard on everything. My family. It was hard on the support system that you have around you, because if you're used to somebody that's, go, 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 and then all of a sudden they're just laying in bed 24/7, like, it's really hard, so it's an adjustment. And some of those things are, they're common though. And that's what I want people to understand. If you're in the chat today, if you are living with this, if you're a caregiver, if you're trying to just learn a little bit about this for somebody else or for yourself, you're in the right place. But I just want you to know that these things are normal. We're going to have our ups and downs. We're going to have our good days, our bad days. The medication is going to make you crazy sometimes. And sometimes you're not going to want to take the medication, but you're going to feel crazy without it. So you're going to want to just stay on your actual medication regimen. So now, Seferiana, I want to fast forward a little bit. We talked about how you were diagnosed. We talked about how I was diagnosed, the early stages of MN. I think we talked a little bit about living with MN and kind of how that is, because it's still up in the air right now, right? If you can help control all the comorbidities is basically, the thing. Can you tell me, last time we talked on the Filter Life podcast, Seferiana, you were just about getting ready to have a medical procedure. Can you talk to me a little bit about that procedure, what that was, and kind of the little story around that? I think that's special.
Oh, that one. Yeah. So we last spoke in March or late February, like what comes before March. So essentially my kidney function, actually my membranous, I would say was in like partial remission or almost remission, but my kidney function had declined pretty significantly. And about a year ago, I started getting evaluated for a transplant because my GFR was down to 20, that is kind of the level of once you get to 20, you qualify, or below 20, you qualify to start getting evaluated, which can take a while. It can take about 6 months or so. Yeah. And so I started doing that. I was like, all right, this is my future.
Scared, right?
I was scared for sure. Oh, someone can't hear. Sorry, I'm looking at the comments too. So basically I started getting evaluated, and I was actually also planning a wedding for this September. So I was going to get married September 2026. But as my partner and I started going to appointments, my nephrologist actually said, you might want to get married now. And, because just in case anything happens, you want to, it's much easier in the hospital system and all of that. And so fast forward to November, we got married in a small ceremony. In my now husband's vows.
Doctor's orders.
Doctor's orders. And my husband vowed to give me a kidney, which I thought was a great offer. I was like, oh, that's new. And my husband was also going to get tested. He was also in the middle of getting evaluated as a donor, as was my half sister. And so as we had the wedding in November, we come to January, he has his final tests, and he ended up being a match. My half sister also ended up being a match, but my husband was a slightly better match, which he's going to hold over her forever. He basically donated to me in March, and so I now have his kidney. Which is very sweet. He wins.
There's nothing like in sickness and in health, right?
In health. And so, yeah, it was pretty amazing. We both had, perfect surgeries. We were sitting next to each other on the couch, recovering afterwards. and it's pretty
You get
great.
some good binge watching done? Did you get to catch up on some binge watching? Yeah, that's
We
awesome.
did. We did. We had to share the TV though, so it's like who gets to choose, and sometimes I like tuned things out and did a puzzle or something. But
And how are you today? So you went through the transplant, you got husband's kidney, and where are you today?
so today I'm 5 months out, 5 months in a day. I'm doing great. I maybe 2 weeks after the surgery, I was walking. You know, they actually tell you the best thing to do is to walk right
Mhm.
away.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And so now I'm walking every day. I'm just started doing like strength training, because I think with transplant comes a whole other set of issues to consider, like bone density, especially for women, but
Yep.
especially if you're on immunosuppressants. And so that's something that's really important to me is staying fit, and because I was pretty fit before all of this kidney stuff. And so it's like trying to retain and kind of get back to a level that I was even before all of this started. But yeah, I'm doing well. I'm recovering very well and feeling good and not feeling exhausted anymore.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. I love that. I love that. And look, for everybody that's in the chat, I want you guys to throw down your comments. We're going to do a Q&A session here in about 10 minutes. So go ahead and throw down your questions. I want to answer some of your guys' questions as well. So throw down some of those questions for us. But yeah, listen, this, this, this disease, man, this disease, um, will test you, right? So I've never been a patient on dialysis, and I've never been a patient that qualified for transplant. When I was diagnosed, I had 27%. So I wasn't at 20 yet, and they weren't, so I didn't qualify. And for my purposes, I wanted to save the kidney, right? I didn't want to just, I wanted to save the kidney. So with all of the trials, I think we sit in front of everybody today on two different ends of the spectrum. I was never had transplant. I am in a partial remission today. I feel great. My membranous, there's almost no trace of membranous, my doctor tells me. Um, I deal with other ailments. Again, those comorbidities, those things that side effects from medications that I had to take, that I'm gonna live with. But as far as membranous goes, there's light at the end of the tunnel, whether it's through end stage all the way to transplant and receiving transplant like you did, or for somebody like myself who went through some clinical trials, got different medications, and for me, one of them was successful. Rituximab really helped me. It really helped me understand a little bit more about this disease as well and where the treatments lie in this disease. So that really helped me. There's no cure, but one day, it's coming. I know it's coming. I definitely know it's coming. I talk to a lot of the researchers in our space, and people who are trying to find out whether they're new pharmaceutical drugs that we can take that are less harsh. I would love to have been able to take something that, lowers my proteinuria, but doesn't make me severely dehydrated and go into all these little cramps, So like, those things are around the corner. I know they are. And there's already been positive signs with other protein spilling kidney diseases, successes in this space. Whether FSGS and IgAN and MN's just around the corner. So there's a lot of positive things that are coming to light around protein spilling kidney diseases and all of those different things. So I think that the importance of this disease, where this lies today in 2026, right? If somebody were to say, look, Dan, what's the most important aspect of membranous nephropathy right now, if you had to say it? And I would say it is research. It's the research. You have to do more and more and more research because there's so much that comes from that. You know what I mean? I ended up taking a drug that was meant for arthritis, and you can't find membranous anymore in me, right? So like, there's success stories out there, whether you have to go all the way through end stage and come out the other side like you did, or you end up going through some medical treatments that end up being successful for you. There is always hope and there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Now I want to go through, we're going to go through, I'm going to poke into this chat a little bit. I've been over here yapping and I haven't been paying too much attention to this chat. But what I do see in the chat is so many familiar faces. So many familiar faces. The people that have come together today to celebrate this day. I call it a celebration. And here's why, right? I call it a celebration. When I was diagnosed with membranous nephropathy, I thought my physical abilities would be gone forever. I'll never be able to really exercise again. I'll never be able. I remember walking to the end of the driveway to get the mail, exhausted. But today I swam 750 meters in the pool. And I'm starting to increase that. I'm starting to get my bike riding back. I'm starting to get these things back in my life, and figure out what new me is. Not old me before membranous, but new me with membranous, because I still have it, because there's no cure yet. So I still have it, and I hope it stays wherever it is right now and never shows its face again. But in the event that it does, at least now that I know I have support, I have foundation, I have friends, peers like you and everybody else in the chat to help us support each other. So again, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today and being a part of our conversation. I definitely want to see what some of these questions look like. Now, you were reviewing the chat a little bit. Did you see anything that jumped out at you, Seferiana?
Yes, I'm seeing some questions toward the bottom of the chat. So the first one, thank you both for sharing. You're very welcome. Can you both tell us how long and what symptoms you both had prior to being diagnosed?
Wow. Yeah. What symptoms and how long? Okay. The easy answer and the hard answer. The hard answer was I had signs and symptoms for 12 years before I started paying attention to them. Number one. Number two, once I started paying attention to them and I was eventually diagnosed in 2020, it was swelling. It was blood pressure. It was foamy urine. It was, I mean, everything that you see on the advertisements, all of it happened to me almost overnight. Blood clots in my lungs. Pulmonary embolisms is what the medical term. But that I suffered 2 strokes. My blood pressure was uncontrolled. I remember going to the hospital so many different times because they couldn't figure out and control the blood pressure. My cholesterol shot through the roof. And, you know, I don't know if that's similar to you, but that would be some of the things that happened to me when I was getting ready to get diagnosed.
Yeah, I had the swelling. I mean, the main thing I had was that swelling. And before that, I didn't really feel anything else. I just think the swelling got worse and worse. And because I started to investigate it right away, I think I just noticed it and went to the doctor. And so it was kind of like maybe the best case scenario.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. And then I was diagnosed, and then the swelling got worse. That was kind of the main thing, the way it showed up before all of the high blood pressure and cholesterol and weird things that I never noticed before.
Now, I did see one thing in here about Dolores says something about families need help navigating transplant process. And that is so true, because that transplant process, and you went through it, and we're helping at EKF. We help coach people through it, our veterans, and it's a little bit different process through the VA and things like that. But talk to me a little bit about that process and what it was like trying to learn a little bit about that.
Yeah, thankfully my nephrologist, basically kind of prepared me. She was like, there came a point where I think my GFR reached 50 and it started to go below. And like one month it was 50, and then a couple months later it was 30. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And so my nephrologist kind of knew, this is kind of declining quickly, and you're likely to keep declining. And so I was really grateful for that, because that helped prepare me. And she, sent me to classes. Like, I'm in Seattle. And I imagine there are similar places in other cities. But there are these nonprofit organizations that have free classes. Basically, they're called options. The class is actually called options, and you go and you just learn all about your options, right? Because they're basically saying you can choose dialysis or you can choose transplant. And for me, it was just getting all the education that I could from those classes. And also knowing that once I reached 20, like that's when I could start. So I think like to start the evaluation, and the evaluation means having every test that you could ever need for your age category. So I had turned 40 and had to have my first mammogram like a week after my birthday because it was like, now, now this is a required test for you. And so it was just kind of like knowing ahead of time what it entails. And also the transplant center itself was very helpful in terms of, once you start the evaluation process, they give you a big binder, which I have somewhere. They give you a binder and it's got like how to make a website if you want to find a living donor, learning about the paired exchange program, where like if Craig wasn't a match for me, he was going to give to someone else. Like, so then you get a match quicker. There's, these different ways, different methods that it can happen. It's not impossible. Those are just a few ideas.
And I think it's important. There are, like you said, there are nonprofit organizations out there that can help people and mentor them through these type of processes. And, there's organizations that can connect you with those kind of things if that's something that you're interested in. Now, I just saw one that popped up on here that talked about, there we go, as a patient that's been dealing with membranous nephropathy for a while, what advice and knowledge would you give to new patients? Well, my number one advice that I give to new patients with membranous nephropathy is find community, then find organization so that organization can help you organize that community for you. And then once you get that, I think you'll know where to go. I think you'll have a really, really good idea of a path forward to success. I think that's what I've found. People are always like, oh, drink more water or change your diet or cut out the salt or, call your doctor, get a great relationship with your doctor. Don't be afraid to tell doctors, I need a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion. I've fired many doctors. My wife has fired many doctors on just FaceTime and said, get out of his room and don't come back. From the parking lot, and so don't be afraid of those things. The doctors are professionals who went to school to learn as much as they could about this, and then they go and practice this. They don't know everything. And, sometimes you're your best advocate. So that's what my recommendation is: find community, find an organization that can help you organize that community. I think you'll know where to go after that. What would you say?
I love all of that. I agree. I would add, go to NephCure.org and click on find a specialist and make sure that you have an MN specialist, like someone that deals with these rare kidney diseases, because there's a search function. Someone should drop it in the chat, NephCure. But there's a search function based on where you live, and just knowing, like, I started out with someone who wasn't a specialist necessarily, was a great doctor, but I eventually switched doctors, and now I have someone from the list I found locally. And so I think that just helps. It gives you the peace of mind to know that you're working with a doctor who knows your disease well.
So you found your doctor at NephCure.
Yeah.
I found my doctor literally at NephCure, live like we are today. I found my doctor live at NephCure. So, I mean, I don't know if if you're newly diagnosed, like I said, find organization, because that's where your life will change. That's where the support comes into play. That's where the education takes place. That's where you build support system if you don't have one currently. I've met so many people that didn't have support, or got diagnosed and their support ran out on them, because this is difficult to understand. It's difficult to live with. It's difficult all around when you have a disease that is like this big in the big book of nephrology. It's like a side note, you know what I mean? So if we understand that our disease is like that, people aren't going to school and learning a whole lot about membranous nephropathy. I just want to let you know that, your nephrologists try and do a really good job of, but yes, find a specialist. My world changed when I found a specialist, because that specialist was able to guide me in a way to dive into my labs a little bit better, teach me how to read my labs a little bit better. Some of those things that I just didn't know. I didn't know anything about any of that, and finding organization taught me how to do some of those things, for sure.
Mhm.
Oh, right. So it looks like we got about 10 minutes left in our MN Day celebration. I do see somebody say on here, what is this? This is gotcha. Okay. So yeah. Somebody was talking about the alternative to rituximab. Like there's a whole nother medical treatment or whatever. Listen, my biggest advice when it comes to like, hey, does this work or does that work or does that work? I'm going to tell you the same thing that I hear every time I go to a NephCure conference. And this is what it says. If you see one patient with membranous nephropathy, you've only seen one patient with membranous nephropathy. So ultimately, it's what may work for me may not work for you. What worked for somebody may not work for everybody. So I don't say to find community like you're going to find the answer. But if you find community, at least you can pick a little bit from each person. You know what I mean? Hey, what did you do when your blood pressure went through the roof? Or, hey, I got a pulmonary embolism. How did you deal with that while you were in the hospital? Right? Like little things, that's where you can find the support groups and find that community, to get some of those answers when we all know you're in between doctor's appointments. If you're a VA patient, your doctor's appointments are going to be like 6 months apart minimum. All right, we got another question. Here we go. I've been in remission for 2 years. My numbers were at 0 protein and anti-PLA2Rs in remission, and now they are slowly going back up, but not yet in the nephrotic range. Does losing remission happen gradually or suddenly? Great question. I think that you're learning the one of one theory. This happens different to different people. I've never had a relapse, but what I have talked about with other people who have relapses is they can come on overnight and they can come on progressively. Seferiana, you can talk a little bit about being in more of a stable position, right? And then all of a sudden, what was going on in your life then that do you think that caused that? Do you know? Is there anything that you could contribute to that?
I don't quite know, and it makes me want to go back because I do have primary, so it's like what caused the immune system to shift.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
But the question also makes me think about like currently I would say my MN is in remission because there aren't any signs of it because I get tested a lot now that I have a transplant, but my doctors are definitely keeping an eye on those levels, and so I imagine if it were to come back, it would probably be sort of a slow, like, oh, you're going to start seeing protein spikes. But so it kind of depends also, I think, how often you're getting tested. Because I was getting tested every week and then every 2 weeks, and now it's monthly. And so I'm like, oh, I wonder what it'll show in, September.
Well, then I was testing myself at home. I had little personal strips that I was testing my proteinuria at home, trying to figure out what was causing my proteinuria spikes. What would make it go up? What would make it go down? Like I found out that like when I ate eggs for whatever reason, it would make my proteinuria for that day. It would go up. I don't know why, but it just did.
More protein. I mean, there was a question in the chat about diet, and that's one of the things is like less protein if you have proteinuria. Which
what I tell everybody about diet,
yeah,
because look, I try and talk to a lot of people about diet because there's a lot of different things that can play, right? Ultimately, our kidneys are filters and they're going to filter whatever we put in our body. So we have to talk about diet, right? Because the kidneys would have nothing to filter if we didn't put anything in our bodies. So think of that first, your entry point. What are we putting in our body? And whatever we put in our body, the kidneys are going to have to start messing with. So we want to be easy on those. There are certain like red meats are hard for the kidneys to just process, so like slowing down that. But the most important thing, because everybody is different, because we are one of ones, when we have this disease, get with a renal dietitian. Because somebody that can specifically look at your blood labs, look at your situation and where you are in your journey, and then help you manage what you're putting in your mouth. That's my recommendation, because low salt. Yes, stay hydrated. Yes, cut out as much sodium as you can. All of the things, but really get with a professional renal dietitian specifically that can really dive into your specific like where you are in your journey. That's what I found that was very helpful. I tried to go, I'm still in my journey of adopting some vegan type foods and things like that, but adding a lot more vegan things to or vegetarian, I guess I can say, things to my diet. Haven't necessarily, I didn't go cold turkey, right? I didn't throw out the entire refrigerator and buy all new fresh stuff that I'm not going to eat and it'll just go bad. So I just slowly started adding things, and frozen vegetables helped me a lot, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, paying attention to what goes inside of our bodies, But if somebody, going back to the person who might be going through a slow episode, this is the time that you should be paying attention to your kidney health and your organ health and your blood labs really, really, really good. If you need help with that, find somebody that can help you. I know a lot of people that can help you review those things and make sure that, talk to your doctor, bro, make your doctor. That's one of the things. Listen, I would just want shout out to the nephrologist that joined today. All of the nephrologists that came in and joined today that want to hear from our MN patients, shout out. But we want to explain these labs to our patients, right? Like, if somebody would have sat down and was like, damn, all of these weird numbers with percent signs and commas and quotes and what? I don't know what any of that meant. I just know that there was a scale, and I just wanted mine somewhere in the middle. Right? I was hoping that it didn't go outside of that scale. But I didn't really understand, And what I tell people is, if I asked you today, how are your kidneys doing? What are your organ health? What's your organ health? And you said, well, if your answer right now, in the chat, guys, think about it. If your answer is, my doctor said I'm good, I had my labs done and my doctor said I'm good, I would say that's not good enough. Because what is good? And if you don't understand what is good for you, then we got to keep putting in a little bit more work in that area. And that is where I usually give that kind of advice, is just trying to figure out, like, peel the onion back a little bit more. You know what I mean? Is there any other comments that we see before? It looks like we got about 3 minutes or so. I do want to thank NephCure for putting this on. I want to thank Seferiana for showing up today and sharing your story with us and everybody that has joined. I want to thank everybody that has joined us, from TikTok to YouTube to all over the place, Facebook. I don't know where we are. We're all over the place right now, hopefully. And, I want to make sure people understand that there is community out there. There are people that want to help you. There are people that have been through this before, that are available to you. So again, NephCure, EKF, we all work together to try and provide this, light at the end of the tunnel for you. I just started dialysis in July, Nita said. I just started dialysis in July, and I'm waiting for a transplant from a living donor. Does anyone have any tips to navigate dialysis until my transplant? Well, I'm not a dialysis patient, so I can't really tell you how to navigate the dialysis. It kind of depends on what type of dialysis you're doing and how often you're doing dialysis and those kind of things. What I will tell you, in reference to transplant and qualifying for transplant, dialysis takes a lot out of you physically and mentally. And living donor, in order to qualify for living donor transplant, as Seferiana knows, you got to be in a really good physical fit state. And dialysis is counterproductive to that. So that means that you just have to work that much harder, or you have to find that much more support around you to help you get to where you need to go. That would be my answer to that. Did you want to add something to Seferiana?
I agree. I think that's a great point that you have to be in kind of tip-top health otherwise once you're going to transplant. I would recommend, and I kind of learned this through using like FMLA at work. Like if you're working, use leave, take time to take care of yourself. And yeah, I think the support system as well. Like, are there people around you that can take care of you, that can help you navigate, get a ride, all of those things, because you're going to need that as well when you go into transplant. So yeah, I think talking to people around you and getting that support can really help as well.
Support system. Yeah. Support system's huge. They won't even talk to you about transplant until you have a good support system. One of the advice that I will tell, and that I tell I go into the dialysis clinics in my local area, right? Just to try and show some support, let you guys know that we haven't forgot about you. And you're the one sitting in the chair struggling. So, we go and give blankets and try and give like battery chargers to people because, they're sitting there on their phone and, maybe you got to sit there for several hours on hours, what I will tell a patient that's on dialysis is make sure you're checking in with your social worker at your dialysis center to make sure that they are fully aware of your qualifications and what it takes to get qualified. What I saw and what I experienced was that these people were sending people's information out to transplant centers that didn't qualify. And they gave a lot of patients like a lot of false hope because they were like, oh yeah, my social worker, she's sending it up to da-da-da-da-da-da, but yet you don't qualify. You know what I mean? And it's like, so have conversations, stay in touch with your social workers if you're on dialysis, on your health. You're, as much as you possibly can. You want to be the person on dialysis that is like, I don't know, like abiding by the water restriction or whatever that may be. I'm not sure. It's just what I've heard. So that's about as much as I can give on advice of dialysis. I've never been on it myself. Just haven't progressed there yet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is 8:01. So I wanted to 8 p.m. my time. It's like 5 o'clock on the West Coast. Now it's dinner time for you, Seferiana, and all of those in between. So again, I want to thank NephCure for hosting this conversation. I want to thank everybody for joining in on the conversation. Thank you for providing the chat. You guys are amazing. I see the chat is going crazy on all of the platforms. It's just, I can't even keep up. So this is amazing. I would love for us to do this more. I do know that this is an inaugural thing for NephCure. So Seferiana, thank you for joining us, and NephCure, thanks for hosting us, and membranous nephropathy patients, we're all with you together.
Yeah, thank you.